Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Hey guys, welcome along to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, as always, Neil Gibb, and today I want to talk to you about a new offering or a new product or a new outcome that we have created in the self-managed super fund space for people who want a new build HMO in their self-managed super fund. And if you go back to an episode that I did with Chris Morris, which was episode 86, we talked about the one-part contract process and how the steps we have to follow to get you a new build HMO into your self-managed super fund. And the benefits of this are that you can have an asset in there that's cash flow positive. You can actually sit the property at principal and interest and still produce cash flow from that property. And whilst you're still at work, working hard and, doing what you do, that property in the background is just paying down the principal component so that when you retire, you've got a debt-free asset in your self-managed super fund, which is producing over $100,000 a year of net cash flow after all expenses. And the reason that's so good is because ASFA, which is the Australian Superannuation Funds Association, bit of a tongue twister, so we call it ASFA. ASFA say that for a couple to retire comfortably, they need to have their principal place of residence debt-free, and they need to have $700,000 in their super fund at retirement, right? And then at retirement, then they start drawing down on that super fund. Which means that if you're a man and you live to the average age of 81 in Australia, and if you're a female and you live to the average age of 85 in Australia, that means that you can withdraw around $38,000 per annum from retirement until that average age. $38,000 a year. Not a lot of money. In fact, absolutely horrendous amount of money, because they say that that would give you enough for their definition of comfortable is to have one domestic holiday per annum, one international holiday every 7 years, access to a reliable car and occasional alcohol, eating out twice, once every 2 weeks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that sounds pretty poor considering you've worked hard all your life and you've trusted the government to put this money into this fund for you to have $700,000 to then live a pretty pitiful life when it comes to retirement. You've worked hard, you deserve more. And that's why this investment is better, in my eyes, in my opinion. I'm going to put a disclaimer in here in a second because I realise I haven't done it yet. So imagine you've got $38,000 a year, you get to 81, you've run out of cash, you've got too much life left at the end of your money. An absolute disaster, because now you've got nothing. You've got your principal place of residence, which is debt-free, and you have to sell that to then fund the rest of your lifestyle. You can't pass it on to your kids, yada, yada, yada. However, if you've got a cash flow producing asset in your self-managed super fund and it's kicking out $100,000 a year, you're already 3x earning more than what ASFA say you need to live comfortably, but you've also got an asset there that's going to be worth $2.5–3 million in the next 15, 20 years when you're ready to retire. So this is why I believe, personally, investing in real estate in your self-managed super fund is a really good option. Now, there's financial advisors out there which will say diversify and buy shares and do this and do that and do this. And that's great. That's fantastic. They are licensed to give that information. And here's my disclaimer. Everything I talk about today in this podcast is just for information purposes only. And it's for you to understand that there are other ways that you can do things. But before you go out there and do them, please engage a professional who can give you the right feedback and advice based on your personal circumstances. I'm just a guy that replaced my income, helps other people replace their income, and probably built more wealth than a lot of the financial advisors out there. But there you go. I'm still not licensed to give that advice. So in episode 86 with the thing that we spoke about with Chris Morris, I'm going to share my screen here. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see my head and my screen. So how it would work, right? You've got your self-managed super fund here. And you were needing, when we first looked at this, you were needing 300 to 350K in your super, right? But construction prices went up, land prices went up, and all of a sudden you were needing $400,000 to do a deal. $400,000 in your super. And, that's quite a bit of a stretch for a lot of people. And the other problem with this is you were limited to certain suburbs that you could do these deals in based on the land that was available, and you needed to have a clear title. So you couldn't go out there and develop blocks of land and add value through a development or anything like that. And you couldn't apply for the finance in your self-managed super fund, so you had to transfer the money somewhere else. There was a lot of fees attached to it, which I'm going to run through in a second. But the benefit was you did get a quality asset in your self-managed super fund, which was 10% gross yield and cash flow positive, so you can reduce the debt on there in time for your retirement. So you're $400,000. This is how the process would work, and then I'll show you the suburbs that you could work with. The self-managed super fund would transfer the $400,000 into this entity here. Let's just call this ABC Pty Ltd. ABC Pty Ltd would find a block of land, and that block of land was around 370 square meters on average, 12.5 meter frontage by 30 meters depth. This is the standard block size that we looked for a single story 6x6 in the sort of fringe suburbs, because these have a lot more site coverage, and you can put a 6x6 on there and cover 65-70% of the block. If you were looking inside areas governed by the R codes, then your site coverage on that, on a 375 square meter block, would be less, which means your house would be smaller. You probably wouldn't get a 6x6 on there, it'd be a 4x4, something like that. So ABC Pty Ltd would go out and they would find a block of land. They would put a contract on that block of land, and they would say, we need finance approval. Here's the bank at the top. They know that they're going to get finance approval because they've got a relationship with the bank. So before they go to the bank for the finance approval, they put a contract in place to say, this self-managed super fund will purchase this product on one contract once it's finished. And I'm going to throw some round numbers here. Let's say the block of land was $300,000, and let's say the build was $700,000. So it's around $1 million ABC Pty Ltd to purchase. They will put a contract in place for your self-managed super fund for 1.1 grand over what you've paid, right? Or over what it's cost them. But what they're factoring in there is holding costs from the banks. They're factoring an admin fee for them to put all this together. And you would also have to pay stamp duty on that 1.15, which would be, 45k roughly. So while all that's going, when they put that contract in place to say self-managed super fund will buy this for 1.15, that's classed as a pre-sale. So then they go to the bank and they say, Mr. Bank Manager, we're going to get these guys to put $400,000 into our bank account, which we're going to use as the deposit on this. Even though the deposit's only $200,000, we're also going to make sure they've got the stamp duty, the holding costs, and they've got all our fees up front, which is why you're putting all that money into their bank account. They're going to the bank and saying, we've got 20%, we need you to borrow us 80% to build this property, and we're going to use the self-managed super fund's money as the holding costs and all the associated fees for everything else that's there. And once it's finished, they sell you that nice, new, sparkly 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom self-managed super fund. This is a long-term investment, so for me, I actually don't mind the fact that you're paying an extra fee to $100,000 to $150,000. I think it's actually a really good outcome. There's some other companies out there which charge even more. We found a cheaper option, which we feel was really good, right? The only problem with that is the suburbs that we could put properties in, where if you're looking on the maps now, you'll see that they're kind of fringe suburbs, right? And there's nothing wrong with these fringe suburbs. There's demand there. There's demand for housing. It's affordable. It's getting people into the market, right? But what we don't want to do is we don't want to put too many properties in these areas, because the demand will be limited, right? Not everybody wants to live out there. These are kind of more family-friendly suburbs type things. We want to be helping investors. That's not a very good colour, Mr. Gibb. We want to be helping investors in these suburbs here. These kind of brownfields, infill, not much land getting released next to them. And also not many HMOs in this areas as well. Why? Because not many people have the skill set and experience to actually deliver in these locations, right? What I'm seeing on Facebook now is there's a lot of all these new core living properties popping up. Harmony Core Living. I've seen this other one. Stone something Core Living. And I'm going on the Facebook pages and they've got 2 followers or 3 followers. So they've literally just fired up a page and then they're making all these bold claims like 20% capital growth from day one, guaranteed rents and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, fuck, I've been doing this for 10 years and I can't even make these claims. You've been here for 2 seconds. You've got 2 followers on your page and you're just pulling things out of thin air. So if anything, just be really careful about who you're looking to work with in this space, because I feel like there's a lot of sharks coming in that just want to sell packages and they want to get in and out and just get paid. And they'll probably tell you they've got a property manager there to look after them for you. They're probably, I don't know, they might be saying like living rooms are going to look after it. I don't actually know because I've never spoke to any of these companies, but they're saying they've got property management, rental guarantees, all this stuff. And I'm thinking it just sounds like absolute bullshit. And the reason, like these guys will always be operating in these fringe suburbs. Why? Because they can access this 375 square meter block with a standard model on it. It doesn't take any, once they've got that design, they can replicate it over and over again. It doesn't take any sort of skill or any knowledge or anything like that. They can probably get a builder to just design that for them, and then they use that builder's design. And then they'll just be selling product in these areas so they can get a clip from whoever they get the clip from. And then they move on. And that means that more and more product will end up coming in these areas. Now, the difference with us is we're a fully integrated business from front end project management. You know, we've got our sales and marketing team. We've got our finance team. We've got all the trust structure setup team there to help. We've got a fully integrated business, and then we've got our property management business on the back end. So for us, we look pretty stupid if we were helping investors or saying to investors, invest in these areas, if we haven't done our DD ourselves to show them why there's demand there, to show them how they can get the rents that they can get, to show them that they can get capital growth in these areas based off the over 200 properties which is actually brought to the market now. And nobody else in Perth can say that because nobody else has really done it, right? So we want to be getting our clients more and more into these infill areas. But there's challenges of this, right? The challenges are you cannot find a standard block of land anywhere. And when I mean standard, I mean you can't find a 12.5 metre frontage by 30 depth block anywhere. All the dimensions of these infill subdivided blocks will be different. There'll be slopes in the blocks. There'll be issues. There'll be setback requirements because it's under the R code. It's not under the RMD, which is all of these fringe suburb things. So there's a lot more complexities to be in there. However, we love a challenge. Sometimes we would like life to be a little bit easier. But anyway, we've decided that we want to help our clients do more and more properties in these kind of infill areas, because there's never going to be an oversupply of HMOs in these areas because not many people can actually deliver in these areas, right? So hope that makes sense. Now, the problem with this, right, is if we go down the standard one-part contract route, which we've discussed here, then we need to find an already titled block of land that we can put a design on that can go straight to build contract, right? That means it doesn't go through planning. So the design needs to be deemed to comply. So it's got to have all the setback requirements and everything like that. Very, very tricky to do on an infill block. And a lot of the infill subdivided blocks are too small anyway, which means we need to go vertical and put a 2-story house instead of a single-story house. Not all the time, but I would say 90%, maybe 95% of the time, we need to go double-story on these infill properties, unless we can find a block big enough. And then there's complexities. We need to go through the planning department if we go down that route. So what we've come up with, because we are conscious is the word, not cautious. We are cautious as well, obviously, but we are conscious of all of these co-living Facebook ads, which we're seeing now, where people are just going to be selling on the fringes. So what we've come up with a thing called the off-the-plan contract, the off-the-plan self-managed super fund deal, which is very similar to the one-part contract process that we've just spoken through there. However, it gets our clients into much better suburbs and it gets them a much better product in an area where there's going to be very little demand and long-term stable capital growth. And how this works is we would go out and we would find a block of land that's 1,000 square meters and we can subdivide it into 2. Quickly do the maths for you. It's 500 square meters each block. But to buy them blocks of land, we obviously need capital, right? And there's only X amount of the property developers' biggest stumbling block constantly is capital. But you find a deal and the capital's always there, right? And we've got lots of clients now with self-managed super funds that would rather be in premium suburbs like this. So we've been working direct with the lenders and another financial advisory institute to put together this off-the-plan self-managed super fund deal, which we're talking about today. So we'd go out, we'd secure this property in an SPV, which we've set up again. Let's call it XYZ, PTY Ltd. XYZ would contract on the 1,000 square meter block. And then once we've got it under contract, it would go to two self-managed super funds. Self-managed super fund number 1, self-managed super fund number 2. And we would say, guys, we're going to buy this block. We're going to subdivide it. We're going to put some 6 or 7 bedroom houses on there. And I'm saying 7 bedrooms because we're actually doing one right now in Bassendean, which is 2 6-bedroom houses with a granny flat on each block. The granny flat's only got 1 bedroom in each one because I think we could only fit something like 45 or 50 square meters on, not the full 70. So 7 by 7 in Bassendean. We pick up the block. And instead of us saying we need you to put $400,000 in, which is your deposit and your stamp duty and your holding costs, and them holding costs and the admin fees on the other projects, they come up to be around $80,000 to $100,000. So self-managed super fund number 1 and self-managed super fund number 2, they would need to put on this particular Bassendean deal $1,000 each into this XYZ PTY Ltd. XYZ PTY Ltd will go to the bank and they say, Mr. Bank Manager, we've got the money to buy this block and subdivide it and fund the 2 new 6-bedroom HMOs or 7-bedroom HMOs. And then we've also got pre-sales locked in on the back of them to sell these back into the self-managed super fund deals. And the bank says, we will gladly fund this for you. And we'll also fund the self-managed super fund finance on the back of the deal as well. So they're helping us buy, subdivide, and then sell back into the self-managed super funds by providing the 25-year principal and interest mortgage inside that self-managed super fund. So it's a really good outcome because it gets you into premium suburbs. But if you notice what we're saying here, $380,000 to be in an area like Bassendean compared to $350,000 to $400,000 to be in an area like Alkimos or something like that. Why is it less? Well, because what we're doing here is there's a development uplift in this block. If it's 1,000 square meters, we cut in at 2. Let's say we pay $700,000. There's $100,000 worth of costs, but it's probably worth $900,000, and your 2 blocks are worth $450,000 each. So there's a development uplift in there, right? So what we are doing with these is XYZ PTY Limited will pay the self-managed super fund $25,000 for their cash that they put into the deal. So instead of them losing money, they're investing in a fund which pays them a return. It goes out and it builds their properties for them, and then it transfers the premium property in a premium location back into the self-managed super fund on the back end, and the bank switches the mortgage from XYZ PTY Ltd to self-managed super fund 1 and self-managed super fund 2. Crystal clear? It took me a while. I mean, I love creativity like this. I really love bringing new things or helping investors get access to things that we've never done before. We put 2 of these together now. They were a little bit clunky as we've worked our way through this, but it's starting to become a little bit clearer and a little bit better to understand or easier to understand. So that $380K there would be your 20% deposit, your stamp duty, and of your furniture cost, because you're getting $25K back towards it. I'm going to put furniture pack in there, but then you're getting $25K that gets given back to you, which you can credit towards your furniture pack. Brings your furniture pack down from $45,000 to whatever 25 is off that, $20,000. So the benefit of that is it gets you into great locations, long-term demand, long-term capital growth, very, very low chance of oversaturation in any of these areas. And because we're the property manager, we're actually picking suburbs where we know there's demand, and we're very, very confident that we'll fill these rooms for them. So I hope that helps. And anyone's got any questions? So the difference is the 1-part contract, outer suburb fringes, standard 6x6, potential for lower capital growth, potential for more competition. Rental demand there is strong now, but could slow in the future if these groups continue to come through that don't have a clue what they're doing and just start selling product on the fringes. So that demand could slow down in the future. And it is a more simple and faster process to follow. Compared to the off the plan, in a suburb, 15Ks, 0 to 15Ks from the CBD, maybe 20 at a push, custom design, higher growth potential. There's absolutely nobody else doing this type of stuff in the market. The rental demand is strong and stable. Can't imagine it going down. The process just requires a bit more planning and a bit more time to get approvals from the council because we need to go through the planning department. So there you go. It comes down to you as the investor and what you're trying to achieve in your self-managed super fund for your retirement. But remember, everything that I've discussed in this podcast today is for information purposes only. It's not designed to be advice in any way to anyone. So if you do consider going down this route, then please make sure you speak to a professional and get advice on this strategy. If you want to tap into our network of A-team professionals, then we can absolutely help you with that. First and foremost, we just need to make sure that you've got the capacity to do a deal of this nature. And then we will go out there and start the wheels moving. So there you go, guys. I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, as always, reach out to me and I will see you next week on the podcast.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.